With hundreds of videos on the internet covering basic tips that anyone above the age of 5 could figure out, I've decided to make my own, no BS, Monster Hunter World Ultimate Guide covering some things that I think are essential to make you a better hunter and not a lot of people are talking about. With that being said, welcome hunters, my name is DarkHero and let's get started. Tip number 1. Cut, impact and shot damage. There are 14 weapon types in Monster Hunter World, 11 of which are melees. These can deal 2 types of damage, cut and impact. Cutting weapons can and should focus on severing tails and include the sword and shield, longsword, greatsword, insect glaive, dual blades, charge blades, switch axe, lance, and finally the gun lance. On the other hand, there are impact weapons, which include the hammer and the hunting horn, that can exhaust monsters, allowing you to KO them and can also stun them. These are better used against the monster's head as opposed to cut weapons, which are better used against the monster's tail. As for shot damage, as you can expect, this type of damage is endorsed by the ranged weapons, i.e. the bow and the light and heavy bowguns. Do note that some weapons can deal more than one damage type by performing specific actions. For example, the sword and shield can perform a shield bash to deal impact damage, and similarly, the great sword can also deal impact damage by doing a shoulder bash mid-combo. The bow can deal cutting damage with its melee attack, and the gun lance deals shot damage every time it shoots. These types of damage are important because some monsters are more resistant to one type of damage than to others. You can see if a monster is weak or if it resists these types of damage by taking a look at the physiology page on your hunter notes. The cut damage is represented by the greatsword icon. The impact damage is represented by the hammer icon, and finally, and yes, you guessed it, the shot type is represented by the bullet icon. It should also be noted that the insect glaives kinsects also deal these types of damage. Kinsects that are of the sever variety deal cut damage, whereas kinsects of the blunt variety deal impact damage. Tip number 2. Combo cancel. You can very easily cancel one of your combos by simply pressing X and rolling. While obvious, this tip is very important for weapons that have long wind-up animations, such as the insect glaive's tornado cycle. As you can see here, after I'm done performing this move, it still takes some time until I can perform another action or simply move. However, by pressing X to perform a roll, it will cancel the last portion of the tornado cycle's animation and I am able to move freely or start dealing damage again. This is especially important for slow weapons such as the greatsword and the gun lance. As I said, this may be all very obvious to you, but I'm putting this here since I've seen plenty of people online that seem to have forgotten or simply do not know that they can do this, and it can lead to some frustrating deaths as you'll be just sitting there, waiting to be able to make your next move. It only takes a few milliseconds, but every fraction of a second counts in Monster Hunter. On to tip number 3. Play dead. You can actually avoid being hit by monsters and taking damage by simply lying on the floor. Just don't move the analog stick after a monster hits you and you're down until you see that it is safe to move. This is extremely useful against the most aggressive of foes, such as Diablos and Nergigante, that punish you for being as reckless as they are. Sometimes it's just better to stay low. This is a quick tip that may just save your life quite a few times, so use it as much as you can. Tip number 4 is item management and optimization. Originally, I wasn't going to include this, but seeing as 2 friends of mine who are pretty late into the game didn't know about this, I decided to put it in the video. First thing is that you don't need to look for items that you will need every time you go on a quest. Simply press options while you are in the item box and then press triangle to register the current items you have as a set. That way you can quickly deposit all the items you don't need and you'll get the ones you will need. I suggest making various sets for all kinds of situations as there are plenty of set slots available. You can do the same thing for weapons and armor sets too. Additionally, you can customize your radial menu by going to the options menu for some quick, ready to access items that can be used in the middle of combat. Okay, so pretty much everyone knew about this one, but did you know that you can change the order in which items appear in the item bar? Just go to options, item pouch and press triangle. Now you can rearrange it however you like it. It should be noted that the radial menu and the item bar are tied to your item box, so be sure to customize the radial menu and the item bar to your liking before registering your current item pouch as a set, as these two will go back to how they were before you changed them. The game doesn't tell you this, and I thought my radial menus were glitching until I realized what was going on. And now, time for a bonus tip. If you are like me and are a primarily melee only player, but would like to give ranged weapons a try in the near future, then remove all of your ammo and coatings from your inventory and the item box sets. Each quest usually gives a good number of these at the supply box, so this is a great way to get ammo for free. If you are a melee purist, then you can just sell these for some quick and easy money. Speaking of money, go sell those trade-in items that you have been hoarding. As you can see here, I had completely forgotten that I had these and I got about 100,000 zenny just selling items that serve no other purpose than to be sold. So, go see if you can make some more money. Speaking of money and items, after you defeat Zoro Magdaros, you unlock the Power Charm and the Armor Charm, which you can buy from the Provisions Merchant. They are very pricey but are definitely worth it as they provide significant boosts to your attack and defense by just having them in your item pouch. After you reach high rank, you can combine these with Basilgu's talents to get an even stronger item to get even more benefits. On top of that, you can buy the Power Charm and the Armor Charm again, and these buffs will all stack on top of each other as long as you keep them in your inventory, so go ahead and register them in your item loadouts. Tip number 6. Dunk Pods. Have you ever been fighting a monster and then, all of a sudden, a new one appears and ruins your hunt? Of course you have. This is the fastest way to turn a quest that was going well into a failure. However, if you use dunk pods, it will cause the monster you hit it to leave the area, so be sure to always have a few dunk pods on you, especially in high rank. All you need to craft dunk pods is dung, so go collect some shit? I don't know. Tip number 7. Use your cooldowns. Make sure that you are taking advantage of your Palico skills or your boosters. Once your Palico becomes proficient with a certain gadget, a shortcut to its ability will show up on your item bar, and once the Palico reaches level 10 with that gadget, you will be able to use that ability twice. After these abilities are used, a cooldown will begin until you can use them again. The same can be said about mentals. These are not consumable items. Despite this, very rarely do I see people online using their Palico skills or their mentals and boosters, which can be extremely effective in all kinds of situations, such as near instant healing with Vigor Swap or preventing damage for a short period of time with the Vitality Mantle. These hunter tools are a fundamental part of a hunter's kit and should be often used. If it's just sitting idle in your inventory, you might as well not have it equipped. Smart and efficient use of these can turn the tide in the midst of combat, so be sure to take advantage of them, as otherwise you'll be missing out on a lot of supporting power. Tip number 8. Take a good look at your options. Unfortunately, Monster Hunter World doesn't come default with the best settings. Some of them are pretty bad, so let's change that. First, let's take a look at the camera. The first thing we'll want to change is the camera style. It comes standard with the focus camera, but as you can see, it's not very intuitive. When you lock on a monster, the camera will automatically follow the target, but as soon as I turn my back to my target, it breaks the lock on. Not a very pleasant way to be playing the game, to be honest, and before I knew you could change this, I preferred to play without locking onto a target. Try changing this to the target camera. By doing this, you can move the camera freely with your right analog stick, and just press L1 to focus on your target. As you can see, this camera mode does not restrain you. In fact, it helps you see exactly what information you need to have on your screen at all times. Another thing to change is the target settings. By default, you can lock on to all monsters. I believe this is a detriment since you'll be fighting, for the most part, against large monsters. And this setting just gets in the way of targeting the monster you are hunting if there are other smaller monsters in that same area. As such, I recommend changing this to large monsters only. And the final thing that I would recommend changing is the radial menu settings. By default, to select an item from your radial menu, you have to select it with your right analog stick and then release it to activate and use the item that's in that slot. Unfortunately, with this setting, you will find yourself selecting different items you did not want to select because the analog stick will flick ever so slightly and will select a different item instead of the one you meant to choose. If this happens to you, just select type 2, which allows you to be much more precise since you actually have to press the analog stick to select the item you want to use, and that way you will avoid misclicking in the middle of combat, so go ahead and choose type 2. There are a lot more options that you can customize, but I think those are up to personal preference, whereas these 3 that I have highlighted are, I believe, objectively superior. Tip number 9. Use poison to clear the air. This tip is more suited to those who are reaching the endgame, but is definitely worth mentioning. Some elder dragons that you will be fighting, such as Teostra or Kushala Daor, create a field of air around them, almost like auras, that can prevent you from attacking them or that damage you. If you manage to poison these monsters, you will stop their auras, so it's a good idea to bring poison weapons to fight these elder dragons. Elder Seal works in the same way, but it's not as reliable as until you have weapons with a high level of Elder Seal, you will have a hard time getting rid of those auras. And my final tip is sort of common hunter etiquette. If the monster you are hunting falls asleep, wait until the rest of your party members arrive. It's pretty common for the players to be carrying large bombs and mega large bombs for big hunts, just in case a situation like this arrives. If the monster is fast asleep, you should all try to place as many bombs as you can around it, and if possible around the monster's head to deal more damage. You should also try to make sure that the first explosion comes from one of the mega large bombs, since the first hit against a sleeping monster will deal double damage. In case you or your teammates don't have bombs with you, just let the greatsword user go first to deal some insane damage against the sleeping monster. The easiest way to let your teammates know that you are about to use bombs is by editing one of your shots to something along the lines of "Monsters asleep, let's bomb it," and adding it to your radial menu. That way, Hopefully you won't see a dual blades user attacking a sleeping monster for some minimal damage, and you will actually see your teammates cooperating all together. I've seen plenty of guides that just cover basic tips that are essentially common knowledge, so I wanted to share some things that are actually useful and that you didn't know before. Hopefully I did a good job at that, and if you think that I did, please make sure to smash the hell out of the like button below, as it helps my channel a lot, and please subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed and are looking forward to seeing some more Monster Hunter World content. I've been playing Monster Hunter since 2006, since Monster Hunter Freedom, and I am absolutely loving this game, and I plan to cover it extensively on the channel, so be sure to look forward to it. And with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. My name is DarkHero, and I will see you on my next video.